Life was a constant hustle when I married Amy. We were young, ambitious, and head over heels for each other. I was a struggling software developer, working long hours to build my career, while Amy was a marketing manager with a sharp mind and undeniable charm. Our love was electric. We shared dreams, laughter, and plans for the future. But as we grew older, reality began to creep in, and the weight of our ambitions started to wear on us. Our relationship was mostly solid. Sure, we had our ups and downs, like any couple. But something changed when Amy got a promotion that brought her into the orbit of the affluent elite. I was proud of her. She was living her dream. But as her social circle expanded, so did the distance between us. She was invited to glamorous parties and networking events, while I was often stuck at home, glued to my laptop, poring over lines of code. At first, I thought I was just being insecure. I wanted her to be happy and successful, but with every late night and whispered phone call, I felt a gnawing anxiety. It didn't help that Amy started buying expensive clothes and jewelry, often commenting about how much fun she had with her new coworkers. She would mention the business trips they took, where they would stay at five-star hotels and dine at Michelin-star restaurants. One night, I came home early, hoping to surprise her with dinner. I walked into our apartment, the aroma of something delicious wafting through the air. I figured she was cooking for us, so I called out, "Hey babe, I'm home." But there was no answer. Curious, I made my way to the kitchen, only to find it empty. A half-eaten gourmet meal sat on the table, and the television was on in the living room. I wandered in and caught a glimpse of Amy's phone on the couch. The screen lit up with a message from a contact named Jason. I knew Jason. He was one of those wealthy guys, a venture capitalist who threw around money like it was confetti. They had mentioned him in passing, always raving about how brilliant he was. My gut twisted at the thought of them being together. I grabbed her phone to see the message. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. You make me feel alive." I felt my heart drop. My instincts kicked in, and I knew something was off. That night, I confronted her, and she didn't deny anything. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed that she had been seeing Jason for the last few months. He had been showering her with attention, extravagant gifts, and the kind of lifestyle that I couldn't provide. "Michael, I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. He makes me feel special," she said, her voice trembling. My world shattered. The pain was visceral, a deep ache that twisted in my gut. I had poured everything into our marriage, and here she was, telling me she had fallen for another man, one with money and connections. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss of betrayal and loss. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I don't know," she replied, and that was the knife in my heart. She didn't know. Over the next few weeks, the atmosphere in our apartment became suffocating. I kept replaying our conversations in my head, looking for signs that I had missed. I started to notice the little things, how she laughed at Jason's jokes, how her eyes lit up when she talked about her work events, and how her phone buzzed with messages late into the night. I was living in a constant state of paranoia, checking her social media for signs of their relationship. We went through the motions of trying to work things out, but the trust had been shattered. Every time she walked out the door, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I wanted to believe that our love was strong enough to withstand this, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was slipping away. After a particularly tense dinner, I confronted her again. "I can't keep doing this, Amy. I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle." "I don't want to hurt you, Michael, but I need to figure things out for myself," she replied, avoiding my gaze. That was the moment I knew it was over. We were no longer partners. We were strangers sharing a home, trapped in a web of deceit and heartbreak. I decided to give her space, but in my heart, I knew I was only prolonging the inevitable. One night, I came home to find the apartment empty. I glanced at the coffee table, and there it was, an envelope addressed to me. My stomach dropped as I opened it, revealing a handwritten note. "I'm sorry, Michael. I'm moving in with Jason. I need to follow my heart. I hope one day you can forgive me." The finality of those words hit me like a freight train. I crumpled the note in my fist, anger boiling inside me. How could she do this? How could she throw away everything we had built for a fleeting fling? I felt my heart break into a million pieces, anger coursing through my veins. Part 2. The Descent. In the days that followed, I sank into a dark pit of despair. My world had crumbled, and I felt utterly lost. I stopped going to work, skipped meals, and neglected everything I once cared about. Friends reached out, but I pushed them away, isolating myself in the pain of betrayal. I even started drinking more than I should have, trying to drown my sorrows in a bottle. The nights were the hardest. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship in my mind. The laughter, the dreams, the love. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I spent hours scrolling through old photos of us, remembering the happy times, wishing I could turn back the clock. I thought about Amy and Jason together, how they were probably laughing, enjoying the lifestyle I couldn't provide. I could picture them in those fancy restaurants, dressed to the nines, with him whispering sweet nothings in her ear. It made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't escape the feeling that I was inadequate, that I had somehow failed her. Days turned into weeks, and I felt like I was spiraling deeper into despair. I'd stay in my pajamas, binge-watching shows to numb the pain. My apartment became a disaster zone, dishes piled up in the sink, clothes strewn across the floor. I had turned my once vibrant home into a reflection of my broken state. But then, something clicked. One day, I stumbled across an old photo of us from a hiking trip. We were smiling, arms around each other, looking like we could conquer the world. I remembered how we started our relationship with nothing but hope and ambition. That was when I realized I couldn't let her betrayal define me. I needed to reclaim my life and my worth. I dusted off my laptop and started coding again, but this time with a newfound fire. I had a brilliant idea for an app that would revolutionize how people managed their finances. It was inspired by my own struggles, my need to budget more effectively in light of my sudden financial instability after the divorce. I spent countless nights brainstorming, coding, and perfecting my vision. I poured my anger and pain into my work, determined to create something incredible. At the same time, I began to work out again. I hit the gym hard, channeling my frustration into every rep and set. I lifted weights as if they were the burdens of my heartbreak, shedding the old me while building a stronger, more resilient version. I lost weight, gained muscle, and with it, a sense of confidence that had been buried beneath the rubble of my shattered marriage. I reached out to old friends and former colleagues, letting them know I was back in the game. I networked tirelessly, attending meetups, pitching my app idea, and soaking up knowledge. Every day was a battle, but I was fighting for myself now. The motivation I drew from the pain of betrayal fueled my ambition like never before. Months passed, and my hard work began to pay off. I secured a small investment from a former colleague who believed in my vision. He was impressed by the prototype I developed, and with that initial funding, I launched my app, Budget Buddy, designed to help users track their spending, save money, and invest wisely. The app went live, and the response was overwhelming. It went viral within weeks, with users raving about its simplicity and effectiveness. I watched in awe as my dream transformed into a reality. As the downloads skyrocketed, so did my confidence. I began to receive emails from users who had turned their financial lives around thanks to my app. Hearing their stories of transformation was incredibly rewarding. I knew I was making a difference, and it filled me with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. I started a blog to share tips on budgeting and saving, and the following grew rapidly. But with the success of my app came the scrutiny of my past. I began to notice social media posts from Amy, who had started a blog of her own about her life after leaving me. She painted a picture of a glamorous lifestyle, traveling to exotic places, and attending swanky events with Jason. The jealousy surged like a poison in my veins, but I was determined to rise above it. Part 3. The Comeback. While I was busy building my empire, I heard whispers of Amy's life with Jason. It seemed like a fairy tale from the outside, but there were cracks forming in their relationship. Friends of friends shared stories about their growing rift, about how Jason was more interested in his business ventures than in Amy, leaving her feeling lonely and unfulfilled. One fateful night, while scrolling through Instagram, I came across a photo of them together at a gala event. Amy was radiant in a stunning dress, but something about her smile didn't sit right with me. It looked forced, a mask she wore for the world to see. My gut twisted with a mix of sympathy and vindication. "Look at you, living the high life," I muttered, my heart racing. But I knew that while she was out there parading her new life, I was here, rebuilding mine from the ground up. A few months later, I received a message that changed everything. It was an invitation to speak at a tech conference about my entrepreneurial journey and the success of Budget Buddy. They wanted me to share my story of resilience and how I turned heartbreak into fuel for innovation. It was a dream come true. The night of the conference, I stood backstage, nerves bubbling in my stomach. I could see the crowd through the curtain, business leaders, investors, and fellow entrepreneurs. My heart raced as I took a deep breath, ready to face the audience that would listen to my story. I stepped onto the stage, and the spotlight hit me. The moment I opened my mouth, I felt a surge of energy. "Hello, everyone. I'm Michael, and I'm here to share how a personal crisis led me to create something incredible." I shared the story of my marriage and Amy's betrayal, framing it as a journey of transformation. I spoke about my struggles, my dark days, and how I turned my pain into purpose. I could see the audience connecting with my story, nodding in understanding. I had their attention, and I seized the moment. As I reached the climax of my speech, I saw Amy in the audience. She looked different, vulnerable, almost regretful. It felt surreal. And I continued, "But it's not just about the struggles, it's about resilience, about rising up when life knocks you down." And that's what I did. I created Budget Buddy, not just to help myself, but to empower others to take control of their finances. The applause that followed was thunderous, and I stepped off the stage, my heart racing with exhilaration. I had poured everything into that moment, and it felt like a cathartic release. I was no longer the broken man I had been. I was a force to be reckoned with, a reminder that success comes from overcoming adversity. After the speech, I was approached by investors who wanted to discuss potential partnerships. I felt a surge of excitement as I realized that the momentum was on my side. The night ended with promises of collaboration, and I was optimistic about the future. A few weeks later, I received a call from a major tech company interested in acquiring Budget Buddy. They saw its potential to expand into a comprehensive financial management platform. The negotiations were intense, but I stood firm, knowing the value of my creation. In the end, we reached a deal that would change my life. I sold the app for a significant amount, setting me up for financial freedom. And I had gone from heartbroken to a successful entrepreneur, and it felt like a vindication. At the celebration party, I raised a glass to my journey, to resilience, to growth, and to proving that we can rise from the ashes, I shouted, surrounded by friends and colleagues who had supported me through my darkest days. As the night wore on, I spotted Amy across the room. She looked different, older, perhaps more aware of the consequences of her choices. Our eyes met, and in that moment, I felt a strange sense of closure. She approached me hesitantly. "Michael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been following your journey. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished." "Thanks, Amy," I replied, my heart steady. "But I've moved on. I've learned to value myself beyond your approval." "I understand," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I made a mistake, and I'm sorry for how everything turned out." In that moment, I realized that I didn't need her validation or remorse. I had built a life beyond her betrayal, one filled with purpose, ambition, and self-worth. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Amy," I said, giving her a soft smile before turning away. As I stepped outside, the cool night air hit my face, and I breathed in the sense of freedom. I had reclaimed my life, turned my pain into power, and emerged stronger than ever. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I was Michael, a man who had faced the abyss and returned to claim his destiny. The underdog had risen, and my story was one of triumph, resilience, and hope. Life had a way of feeling comfortable, almost predictable, in those early years of marriage. My wife Sarah and I were together for 8 years and married for 5. We shared an apartment in the city, a few pets, and what I thought was a solid life together. I was building a career in tech, earning a decent salary, while Sarah was climbing the corporate ladder in marketing. We had our routine down: dinner dates, weekend getaways, the occasional late-night binge-watching our favorite shows. I thought we were happy, but slowly, like water seeping through the cracks of a dam, things began to shift. It started subtly at first. Sarah began working late more often. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself that it was just a temporary thing. Everyone gets busy, right? But as weeks turned into months, I noticed her phone buzzing with notifications that she would quickly hide whenever I entered the room. She'd laugh at her screen, but it felt hollow, detached, like she was laughing at an inside joke I wasn't in on. One evening, I was scrolling through social media when I stumbled across a picture of Sarah. She was at a rooftop bar, the skyline of the city shimmering behind her. Standing next to her was a guy I didn't recognize, tall, handsome, with a confident grin. The caption read, "Another late night with the best team." My stomach dropped. I felt that instinctive twinge of jealousy mixed with something darker, betrayal. I tried to brush it off, to convince myself I was overreacting. But over the next few weeks, the feeling only intensified. I started playing detective, tracking her movements with the subtlety of a spy in a bad movie. Late nights at the office turned into client dinners and networking events. When I pressed her for details, she'd shrug it off, laughing at my suspicions. "You're being ridiculous," she'd say, with a smile that felt more like a mask than genuine affection. It was one of those gut-wrenching moments when I finally snapped. I was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, when I decided to confront her. I texted her, asking where she was. The response was slow to come, too slow for comfort. Finally, she replied, "Out with some colleagues, don't wait up." My instincts kicked into overdrive. I decided to take a drive, knowing she wouldn't expect me to. I pulled up to that bar, a trendy spot packed with young professionals. I parked a block away and waited, my heart pounding like a jackhammer in my chest. After about an hour, I spotted her. She emerged, laughing with that guy, their bodies leaning into each other as if they shared a secret. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I was paralyzed, watching the two of them embrace, the intimacy evident in their movements. What the hell was I doing? I wasn't just witnessing my wife being unfaithful. I was witnessing the destruction of everything we'd built together. Rage bubbled up inside me as I sped home, fists clenched on the steering wheel. The following morning, I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. When Sarah came home, I could smell the alcohol on her breath from the night before. The air felt charged, thick with unspoken words and underlying tension. "Where were you last night?" I asked, my voice steady but laced with frustration. "Out with friends," she replied nonchalantly, as if it were the most casual thing in the world. "Cut the crap, Sarah. I saw you. I saw you with him." Her expression shifted from surprise to irritation. "Oh, come on, Michael. It's not what you think." I felt the anger boil over, and I couldn't hold back. "What? You were hugging him like you haven't seen him in ages. You think I'm just going to sit here and pretend everything is fine?" "Look, it was just a friendly hug. It doesn't mean anything." I could barely breathe, the fury and pain threatening to choke me. "Friendly? So what? You're out late, drinking, laughing with some guy, and it's just friendly?" "Michael, I didn't want to hurt you. Just what? Tell me the truth," I shouted, unable to contain the emotion any longer. The look on her face shifted from defiance to resignation. Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a twisted mix of anger and pity. "I've been seeing him for a while now," she confessed, and my heart dropped. "It started out innocently. He offered me a way to make more money, and I thought I could handle it." My mind reeled. "You thought selling yourself for money was handling it. What the hell were you thinking?" "It wasn't supposed to go this far. I thought I could keep it separate, that it wouldn't affect us." Her voice trembled, and the facade of control shattered. "But it did affect us. You shattered our vows, our trust. Do you even realize what you've done?" "I care. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." I stared at her, disbelief flooding my system. "So you sold yourself for a little cash and some excitement? That's what this has come to?" "Ah, I was feeling lost, Michael. I thought it would help us help me." It felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the world spinning beneath me. "This is your solution? Lying to me, sleeping with someone else?" Silence enveloped the room, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to lash out at the universe for allowing this to happen. Instead, I felt a cold detachment settle in, as if I was watching a movie of my life rather than living it. The reality of our situation hit me like a freight train. The betrayal felt like poison coursing through my veins. I had devoted my life to this woman, only for her to throw it away like it meant nothing. That day marked the beginning of my descent into a hell I never anticipated. Sarah moved out that same week, leaving behind a hollow shell of what was once our home. I felt like I was in a haze, unable to grasp the full weight of what had just happened. I dove headfirst into work, thinking maybe it would help numb the pain, but the ache lingered, a constant reminder of her betrayal. I became a ghost in my own life, floating through the motions, laughing when expected, but crying alone at night. As the days turned into weeks, I turned to therapy, hoping to find clarity amid the chaos. I needed to process the emotional wreckage Sarah had left behind. My therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Harris, helped me unravel my thoughts. "You need to confront the hurt, Michael. You can't heal if you keep burying it." Each session peeled back layers of pain, revealing insecurities and fears I had long ignored. I learned that I wasn't just angry at Sarah. I was angry at myself for ignoring the signs, for believing our love was infallible. I began to understand that healing wasn't linear. It was messy and complicated. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I stumbled upon another photo of Sarah with that guy. They were grinning, looking happy, and it felt like a dagger to my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling of rage and despair. It was a reminder that she had moved on while I was still grappling with the fallout. Driven by a need for closure, I decided to reach out to him. I sent a message, my fingers shaking as I typed, "You don't know me, but I know what you've done with my wife." To my surprise, he replied almost instantly, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought she was single." The response hit me like a slap in the face. She had lied to him too. In that moment, I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. I wasn't the only one she had deceived. "Whatever, just know that she's not worth it," I typed back, trying to mask the hurt with anger. Weeks turned into months. Sarah was gone, and the apartment felt foreign, empty without her laughter and presence. I filled my days with work, friends, and therapy, trying to reclaim my life piece by piece. But the memories haunted me. I'd catch myself replaying moments, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. Friends would check in, offering sympathy and support. Some were outraged, others shocked, but most didn't know how to respond. "How could she?" was a common refrain. I joined a support group for people dealing with infidelity, hoping to find solace among those who understood my pain. Each week, I listened to stories of betrayal, and while it was comforting to know I wasn't alone, it also brought back the ache of my own experience. One evening, during a particularly emotional meeting, a woman named Lisa spoke about her own struggles with infidelity. "I thought I was in love, but I was just chasing validation," she said, tears streaming down her face. "It's a hard truth to swallow." Her words struck a chord. I realized I was chasing validation too, lost in the belief that love meant sacrifice, that I could fix everything. I began to understand the importance of self-respect and the need to prioritize my own healing. As time passed, I focused on self-improvement. I hit the gym regularly, pushed myself to explore new hobbies, and reconnected with old friends. It was liberating to rediscover who I was outside of my relationship with Sarah. Months later, I decided to file for divorce. The paperwork felt like a final step in cutting her out of my life, a step toward healing. I had to acknowledge that I was more than a casualty in her story. I was reclaiming my narrative. The day I submitted the divorce papers was both freeing and terrifying. It symbolized the end of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. I felt a weight lift, but it was accompanied by a twinge of sadness for what could have been. I learned to embrace vulnerability. I sought connections with others, opened myself up to new experiences, and gradually the darkness lifted. I began dating again, cautiously, hesitant to let anyone in fully. I wanted to protect my heart, but I also craved companionship. One night, I met a woman named Mia at a bar. She was funny, confident, and real. As we talked, I felt a spark, something I hadn't felt in a long time. It was terrifying but exhilarating. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to take the plunge again. But something about her warmth and authenticity drew me in. We went on a few dates, and with each one, I felt walls slowly breaking down. Mia was patient, understanding my past without judgment. I found myself laughing again, feeling the weight of betrayal slowly lifting. While Sarah's actions had left deep scars, I realized they didn't define me. I was rebuilding my life, brick by brick, learning to love myself again. The journey was far from easy, but with each step forward, I felt more empowered, more whole. In the end, I came to understand that betrayal can shatter trust, but it can also pave the way for growth. I was no longer the man who stood by while his wife cheated. I was stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace whatever came next.